but it is only game one. Remember, Dignitas are undefeated set-wise, so if anyone can bounce back after that tough game one loss, I imagine it's them. They'll be in the first pick spot this time, and they're going to keep banning away this Jormungandr. The question just becomes, though, how do they deal with the comp that bullied them in game one?
I don't expect them to ban the Hades, but I wouldn't be surprised if they banned away the Hades at the end of the day either, because last time they banned away Xbalanque in the first game, but that was when they were second pick, because now, being first pick, they can first pick the Xbalanque and do a throwaway ban if they wanted to.
Achilles has been banned out, so now the King Arthur on the table, the Merlin's still out there, as you said, the Xbalanque as well, so a little bit more to pick than there is to ban. And with Dig first pick, they can maybe even leave a good bit open to try and leave that first slot available for themselves. It's Splyce who kind of have to make the decision on what they want to deal with. They've already shown us, though, they don't particularly value the King Arthur in terms of playing it. They banned it last game. So maybe Dignitas are okay with letting it through, and they can kind of force Splyce to ban it here.
I'm not sure if that's something you want to do against varieties, regardless, because I think what happened...
Yeah, like Splyce will almost certainly have to ban it, I think.
Yes, now they definitely have to ban it as the second pick this time around, knowing that Variety highlighted the true potential of Arthur. Win that 1v4 scenario up against Space Station Gaming, so taking that off the table. We didn't really see Bologna in the last game because of the Hades into the Habwa matchup, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see them at all in this set.
Right, we might not even need to because these two solo laners are playing such different god pools than what we're normally used to. But it will be the Merlin that comes through first for Dig. That's no big surprise. It's considered a very strong mid laner right now, and I think that Moswal played it very well too, so take that away from Splyce and get into the hands of Hurriwind. He does so much damage for your team. He can do close range, burn onto single targets, Titans at the end of the game, Fire Giants, whatever you need.
I like the Xingwei pick out of CycloneSpin because you know Ataraxia wants this pick as well. It's a very safe hunter, as is Hachiman, but Xingwei has a little bit of a safer time utilizing that passive, getting back into the laning phase, and CycloneSpin had a good game transitioning into the later team fights with how much frontline presence Splyce has, and that's been their identity, I think, since their success towards the middle portion of Season 5 is the Divios Aror effect, and immediately once Divios comes back into this game, you can already feel that frontline presence out of them.
I think you're right, and you're so correct to point out that the presence specifically here in picks and bans. I mean, Hercules is first picked, and I don't know where that's going. Like, he could be for either one of them in equal measure, and so that makes it so much more difficult for Dig. Look how they're hesitating on this pick now. Do they want to grab Bologna for variety? Is he as confident in that pick if it is into the Hades later on or something like that? You're just not sure, so it puts him in a tough spot.
You just can't really go wrong with a Bologna pick. It doesn't matter who you're dealing with in the solo lane because you have the Scourge to utilize the healing. Even if you get canceled on your Bludgeon, you're still holding the Hammer to at least AoE cleave down the minions. And at the end of the day, you can also just max out the Scourge to get a bigger sustain factor. And last game, when it was Dignitas going for this double physical hunter between Hachiman and AMC, they didn't have the Fafnir. And this time with the Merlin, they're not going to do the double hunter necessarily, but I think that they probably could have ran that last game instead.
They probably could have had that pick available to them as the Unbots comes through. As far as bans are concerned, it's the Hades, though, that rounds out those first three picks for Splyce. And so now the question becomes, will it be that same thing we saw last game? Is it going to be Divios on the Hades and then Hercules for Aror, or do they still maintain that flex potential? And that Hades could be for Moswal.
That's true.
Right? You know, it could be for anyone. So now Dig have to decide what is it that they're going to focus on. And look, this is what they did last game. They were like, we don't know for sure. Let's ban Cyno stuff. They're banning away the Pele.
And it's Hades into Merlin is also really exciting because somebody's going to be forcing that blink at the end of the day, and Hades is going to be looking to capitalize off of it very easily. It could be Aurora running at you. It could be Divios running at you. I don't think that Hurriwind is going to have an easy time against that double front line.
No matter which it is, it's going to be tough for him. Last time, though, Dig banned away the Erlong Shen in that slots and the Fenrir. So that means those are both picks that are open for Splyce if they want to pick those up now, since they had to ban away the Zeus and the Pele.
As is Naja, something that Cyno has leaned on from time to time. I kind of want to see more team fighting presence, though, specifically from Cyno. Maybe go for Ratatasker.
Oh yeah,
be a bad idea. Get that global pressure. Qvofred didn't have the most impact in that last game. He did have a good play onto Cyno after they stole away the blue buff. Cyno took a little bit too much damage. He tried to punish out Dignitas for invading that blue buff. This was around the 21.5-minute mark where I thought, whoa, Splyce just lost two members because it wasn't just Cyno that died. Divios was too far forward, zoning afterwards. The Jean Kui lock-in and the instant dab at a
love
Moswal.
I love it, man. Zhonghui is something he really likes to play. He's comfortable on, and it keeps this team beefy, doesn't it? I mean, now there's very few good targets. Yes, Jingwei is squishy, but she's also dummy safe. Like, good luck catching her out. Airstrike can get her out of there in a moment's notice. So this right now is a tough Splyce team to try and lock down.
I agree, but still up in the air as to if it's Hades solo, Hades mid,
Yeah.
Zhonghui solo, Zhonghui.
Oh, dude, you're right. That might not even be for Moswal.
That's true.
Oh, God.
But, I mean, knowing Moswal, it's probably Zhonghui
Likely,
mid,
yes.
as Hades is kind of a Divio style.
Yeah, it certainly is. Hachiman and Serket rounded out now for Dig. So everything's looking fairly standard. They got the Hachiman and the Fafnir's, the dual lane, Merlin mid, Serket jungle, and it's the Wheelish coming through for Cyno. I like this. It's not a ton of knockups or really a ton of leaps. This feels like just a pick Cyno likes.
I mean, you do have the Hercules Earthbreaker, the
Yes.
pull, so that's one option. The Jingwei Persistent Gust is another one that you can really look for. I love the Serket pick, specifically from Qvofred, because when you're dealing with a high protection Guardian, Mage, whatever, between Hades and Zhonghui, you're looking at Serket for the true damage out of Last Breath, or maybe even the Nemesis with
Right.
Divine Judgment. These are like your tank killers.
You're right. We're just talking about how this would be a hard team to chew through, and someone like Serket is quite good at that one. But still, these teams have failed to disappoint us. Very just exciting just throughout these picks and ban phases. I don't want to hold you all away from the action any longer. Let's get ready then for game number 2. Dig against Splyce. It's Tom and Aggro.
Thanks a lot, John. Thanks a lot, Toli. And Herc and Hades coming back again. Splyce just returning to what won them game number 1.
I really love the idea that Splyce goes for here, and it's that, okay, we're going to pick Hades again, so make sure you pick a lot of leaps, because you're going to need them, because we got a Hades ult. Watch out for those. You're going to get your jump. Oh, Willix. And then they lock it in. I love it. They've got the knockup already from Hercules to set up for Cyno if necessary, but Cyno's proven that he doesn't need a lot of setup on this god. There's a god that Cyno's very, very comfortable on, and I think is going to be critical to Splyce's success here in game 2.
I really like this approach to the game that Splyce are doing. So they have the strategy of Herc and Hades, and then they allow you to adapt to it, and then they kind of keep the same strategy, but they just side in, for lack of a better term, 1 or 2 other pieces.
Yeah.
And it changes not the engine of the composition, but the outskirts, and that really changes how you have to play against it.
It does, but I do like Dignitas' adjustment of taking away the Merlin first and foremost. I think that was really, really crucial to the composition working so well in game number 1 of this set. It's also a pick that can shred through those prots, the absurd amount of them that Hades gets during Pillar of Agony. I think that this is a much better start for Dignitas in what they've gotten in their draft. Hurriwind just needs to be awfully careful about when he's using that flicker and setting up for that CC that Hades is going to be looking for.
Trixtank going to make the adjustment as far as strategy is concerned and start here in the solo lane just like Aror. Divios and Aror will look for the blue buff invade or excuse me, their own. So just to clear the lane and return back to the wave. Very normal stuff because Dignitas was able to respond. So I think Auror's able to do a little bit more if it's 2-on-1. Here it matches 2v2, and so Dignitas kind of neutered that start that helped out the beginning last time for Splyce.
But it's all about just making sure that Divios gets his blue early and is clean and clear through the early game. All you have to do is get Divios to finishing that Warlock staff, and he's a-okay. So this is fine, even if it isn't as aggressive as it was in the last game. Maybe it's still going to give you a lot of extra safety in this lane to have Aurora start with you there. And again, he's just trying to not spend any time at all in the duo lane.
Well, in early beads, Hurriwind gets flipped, but no kick because Aurora had already used that. But yeah, Divios, it's 1,300 gold to finish off that Warlock staff. It's a large number, and he's got to, even then, be behind once it's finished, like we were talking about in game number 1. So that's why it's important to really get this launch correct, because it's one of those characters where if you kind of get put behind early, there's not really coming back. Not character build path, I think, is even more important than the character here.
Cyno's on the right-hand side. He's lurking, and this is the same sort of route he did last time, where he takes a wave around this time, as he can take a wave here, head back towards backs, and then speed. So Variety, good recognition, wasn't quite as far up that time around. But this is a whole new style where last game Variety tried to outvalue the late game of the Hades by going for a late game selection of his own. That clearly didn't work out. So instead now he's going back to pure pressure, and it's a matter of how much can he really get done in this lane with a warrior this time instead of the same mage that Hades was in game 1.
And you liked the pickup of the Merlin here as the adaptation from Dig. I like the Bologna adaptation. I think, yeah, we talk a lot about the Hades protections that Hades is going to get, but those people stuck in the Pillar of Agony can just feed off of the protections that they get from the Bologna if you just 1-2 punch. You're not going to get the stun on Hades, obviously, but you can certainly help out and provide some props for the team. I think there's a lot of value in what Variety can bring against what Divios was able to do last time around. So a couple of adaptations from Splyce, mainly looking at Cyno on the pull, and then Dignitas bringing out some prot shred and some extra protections for their own team should they get stuck in the gyro.
As soon as Variety and Qvo hit level 5, though, Qvo needs to come over to the solo lane and just punish Divios for not having purification beads, for having pure HP. You can do a lot of damage with Circuit passive because it's HP based. You can get a lot done.
Cyno not going to find the first knockup. Still looking for damage on Ataraxia. The beads come out almost perfectly for the Feather Step, but Ataraxia ultimately lives because Cyno doesn't find that knockup. Whether that's just quick moves on Ataraxia's part or a misplay from Cyno, well, that's 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Just an interesting attempt at the first blood.
Good idea. Neither of these hunters had any pressure on them in game 1, so keep them honest in this lane this time around, I think is a good look.
Oh, from the left, from the right, pushed up the lane and put underground. Hurriwind gets the last hit of the roar, gets pounced on, and Moswal pops the ultimate looking for a response kill.
Good.
But Qvofred, just barely alive, will get out of there clean.
Great shell from Trixtank, keeps Qvofred up and alive, but a good aggressive play around shutting down Aror. I was looking for them to shut down Divios in this lane, but really either way, you're taking away the limited front line by going after Aror, or you can go after the linchpin of the combo in the Hades. But Qvo just being more active in the early game is really what the doctor ordered for Dignitas. Qvo, despite playing an aggressive early game god in the Ratatosker, didn't really show up in the early stages in the last game, was being pretty patient in the jungle, probably a little bit too patient that time around, so this time puts the pedal to the metal a little bit earlier and ends up getting first blood for Dig.
So Splyce here, running around and find themselves down, pretty much just the cost of the first blood. Moswal just hitting level 5 there and kind of making the play, but like you said, a good shell coming out from the opposing support really put him at bay. Moswal's not really supposed to answer that early anyway. Sometimes that first level 5 ultimate can kind of really nail players, but what you want from your Zhang Kui is mid-game and late game. Certainly not the early game monster that Qvofred can be.
No, Qvo is just can do a lot regardless of what pick he's on. But I had the discussion with Mitch yesterday about how Qvo historically undervalued in his position among the best players in the world in my mind. I mean, he's always right at the top in conversation for best players on Earth, not just in jungle, but in any position.
I don't agree there. I mean, his impact is always kind of felt. Even we were talking about that yesterday. I think everybody has just been mentioning Qvo because it was about like in the middle of last year when everybody went, wait a second, we've always just defaulted, to certain players, but Qvo has just consistently been doing it. Less superlatives, perhaps, but I think this Dignitas team just might be what he needs to really find himself winning some lands. And, we'll see how far this Dig team goes. Early in the season, for sure, but already Dignitas very proud, undefeated.
Nice little Totem of Coup secure there from Divios. love those cheeky little... That's kind of the equivalent of ward battles for supports, where... In the early game especially, it's not super important, but there's pride on the line.
Oh yeah.
In order to get that, and Divios getting the better end. Qvo has ultimate up again, and this is where I think that he's got to spend some time in solo lane. No boots yet for Divios, not a lot of stacks on that Warlock staff yet. Get him behind and let Variety get ahead is the big thing. Eventually Divios will hit level 20 and get his absurd amount of prots and it'll be fine, but if you can get Variety ahead and let him start rotating around the map, then that'll make a big difference from what Dignitas had in game 1.
Red buff invade coming out from Dig, and they walk away clean. Nice job there. Splyce unable to really punish and Dig will get both reds. Nobody able to pick it up, but it is what it is. So another slow start. And again, kind of by design here, Splyce want to keep it slow. Qvofred can get pushed quickly into the mid lane. But Aurora, the only member of his team there, as Moswal's out getting the right side Harpies. So no real extra damage to follow up on the great push coming out from Aurora. You know, it's interesting. We said that game number 1, it was slower so that Divios can kind of get his stacks and do this strategy. Cyno's going to get surrounded, be able to jump out, but ultimately fall down. Kill number 2 for Team Dignitas. Now a flank, and Moswal's here.
Moswal has the card on a Trixtank, and he knows his jump is down. Ataraxia doesn't have the ultimate either, but Aurora used that excavate in mid lane. Qvo still lurking as well. I love that patience from Hurriwind. Doesn't reveal himself and show Cyno that they know where he is. Instead, just waits for Trixtank to land the hammer over the wall and then end up getting the easy kill onto the beadsless jungler.
Well, there's Aurora with the blink. He gets the beads out of Hurriwind. His in-kit blink is down now. Splyce have identified that they want to play slow. Why didn't Dignitas just turn on the jets and go hyper early game?
They don't need to, because think of how game 1 went. I mean, game 1 was very slow and methodical for the first 14 minutes. Then Divios hit his power spike, and as soon as he got Mantle of Discord, they won every fight. That's the way that Splyce is going to try and play it. It's about getting your combo pieces assembled. They're not trying to storm off before they've got their mana dork in play, right? You need to have everything in your hand and ready to go. You need the Spear of the Magus in the mid lane. That's a critical piece of this combo, is having a mage that makes use of that pen option that makes Divios do more damage. And Moswal just doesn't have that yet.
No, exactly. There's so many things to line up. There's so many things that need to happen. Why isn't Dignitas the team that says, all right, we're gonna go early and try to prevent you from getting all your stars to align. We're gonna get in there and throw a monkey wrench in the cogs.
Because that's what the Hercules prevents you from doing that particularly well. He's good enough early and aggressive that he can stop you from doing a lot of those things. Same with the Awilish. It's just really good at defending buffs if you're consistently there and good at fighting you in the early stages. I think this composition for Dignitas is much more focused around, once variety join these fights, we can start turning them in our favor pretty heavily. But I do agree with you in some points that I'd like to see Qvo be a little bit more active, specifically in the solo lane, and shutting Divios down. For him to get 10 levels in 67 Warlock staff stacks without any sort of pressure is a little bit surprising.
Yeah, we're officially kind of out of the woods now, you know? Still got 30 stacks to go, but it's now he can fight you like he had any other item, so it's a little bit different there. Certainly strong, can control what Bologna wants to do here. Hurriwind and Trixtank going to jump on Mozzie one more time, knocked up and pulled, but the rest of Splyce is here, and this could be a bad fight for Dig if they commit. Moswal is going to blow the ultimate and hit the card, and Qvofred takes him out before the exorcism. A whole lot of damage stopped there, and now Splyce on the bad side as Hurriwind takes down Aurora.
Variety still alive as well. Cyno very, very low. Qvofred finishes him off with the Deathbane. Cyclone doing what he can, but Airstrike a little bit off the mark, and he's got to let the fight go. There's those protections you mentioned from Eagle's rally. Those were huge in the midst of that Hades ultimate. And just not having Moswal there to strip those prots away, though he actually ends up going Divine Ruin in this game, which I am definitely not a fan of if that's your combo piece that you need to set up. Dignitas this time get a much better fight in their favor. That being said, they've got 5 kills in a Gold Fury now, and they're only up 2,000 gold, not even. Dignitas need to be stripping away a little bit more from Splyce's jungle if they want to run away with it.
Yeah, Splyce has had some successful invades, most notably the red buff just before. Qvofred kind of saving that fight, because this is a Splyce fight up and down, I think, and Qvofred getting the passive basic onto Moswal to make sure he dies in the middle of the exorcism animation. There's 3 members of Dig grouped up in this little corridor. I mean, Moswal, it's early. It's because he's not an early game god, but it's still, exorcism will still hit very hard. And so a couple of players grouped up. It changes the entire team fight if Moswal gets that single ability off. Even if he dies after it, it changes the team fight. And Qvofred getting that 1 kill, I think, turns the entire fight into Dig's favor.
Just good harassment by Hurriwind as well onto Moswal for going for those mid camps alone. It's just so risky to do when you're this far into the game. The enemy assassin and solo laners just have so much more farm than you, especially with this little mini meta that's developed for Dignitas, where they're forcing teams to three-way split mid-waves all the time, you just end up so far behind from what you're used to in Season 6 that you can't stand on mid-harpies by yourself. You just don't clear them fast enough.
Yeah.
And Moswal gets caught with trying to secure those, takes too much damage. Trixtank missed the hammer, but didn't end up mattering because Hurriwind was able to do enough damage with just AoE alone.
Qvo again looking for the invade, and this is what you were asking for. If they want to take off with the lead, they've got to be a little bit more aggressive and find these openings. But Splyce with the good vision, not only do they have the timer of their own buff, but they've got the vision over there by the Gold Fury. So they see Qvofred and Hachiman kind of walking up, and then allows them to group up, take the buff before anybody can even get there. Nice response from Splyce to the last red buff invade.
Looks like Ataraxia is changing up his build from last game. He knew that Divios went for Thorns last time around at level 12, so he's not building into the Rage right away. Might be waiting and seeing exactly what Divios is going to go. He is level 13, but hasn't back to base quite yet. Divios is probably just waiting to see what Ataraxia is going for. No waiting, though, for Variety. He goes Thorns right away. CycloneSpin will sometimes crit incidentally by using explosive bolts and can't really stop it. So Variety can also just sit in the middle of that Jonqui ult or that Hades ult. That's unstoppable damage that is going to be returned one way or the other. I think Thorns is the right call for Variety.
Certainly agree there. And Variety, like you mentioned, a big player in that last team fight that we saw, the Bologna. And just on an island, Variety's Bologna is kind of scary in and of itself. So Dig certainly have a nice adaptation. We haven't really seen Splyce do it, obviously with no kills, but that should be expected, as now is the time. You see the Medal of Discord finished here. Now I think is the time where we expect Splyce to get involved and start looking for their combo and start doing things. But they're already 2,000-3,000 gold down at this point, and so they've got to be a little bit more wary of which opportunity they go for.
That's something that Splyce, I think, can still navigate through. This is not an unmanageable lead by any stretch for Dignitas.
You just have less wiggle room.
Exactly. You've got to be very precise with who you're going on, but there's less easy targets, I would say, on Dignitas in this composition for this Hades than in the last game. You're really looking for Qvo to lose the purification beads, but there's no way that Qvo finds himself in a position with no movement and no beads and Cyno around for Gravity Surge. It just seems like a lot of boxes to check in order to get that Awilish pull guaranteed onto the Circuit. I think it's more likely that you can have Aror use that Hercules 2, knock Variety up, Gravity Surge him into your team, and then isolate him and kill him that way. That should be more of the look. But Trixtank's playing such a survivable character, and Fafnir, it's really hard to lock him down long term.
Yeah.
I think Dignitas really just came in with a plan and had a really great adjustment to what Splyce did in Game 1.
Right now, Splyce trying to continue their success from game number 1, but having a hard time of it. Dignitas looking like the team they've looked like all season so far, and responding well to a great game from their opponent. Now in game number 2, 15:50 on the clock, and Digger only about 3,000 gold up. It's a close one. So like Ryan was saying, Splyce could definitely jump back in, but Dignitas is a team that really don't like to give up these leads. They like to look for the Gold Furies and look for the invades, and all of a sudden you see Trixtank dropping vision down right by the Oni Fury, and Dignitas definitely are at least objective-minded. Splyce's presence might make them shy away, though.
I like what Variety's doing. Divios' teleport is down, so he has to walk over and respect this Gold Fury, whereas Variety can keep pushing.
Trixtank going to get pulled in. That's the situation that Cyno wants. And the first kill for Splyce goes their way.
That CC chain, man, that was nutty. Trixtank never got a chance to use that ultimate. Now onto the Oni Fury goes Splyce. They did use Gravity Surge, but that's not too much to invest. Aror just had an Aegis that he used. Divios dashing forward, has the Thorns procced, and that'll force out mounted archery. That Ataraxia is still safe. Not exactly the same for Variety as Moswal finds him, but Cyno very low. He dies to the last breath. Moswal just able to escape himself.
Great job there from Divios, just zoning the Hunter away, making sure that he can't come back into the game. Hurriwind, though, perhaps one better. Really, really, really nice salvaging coming out from Dignitas' mid laner there. Able to find a kill after the fact, and then using Blizzard as an area denial to make sure that nobody follows him and his teammate. Really impressive stuff from both sides in that team fight, I think. Usually when there's like 1 or 2 kills per side, everybody runs away hurt. Sloppy is the descriptor. I think that was just well done by both teams.
Yeah, I think Dignitas did a good job of salvaging that fight when Trixtank dies without getting a relic or his ultimate off, and that really wasn't too much of Trix's fault. A little bit too far forward, I would say, near that Gold Fury, but that was just great execution from Splyce. That's exactly what I'm talking about. A Hercules pull, straight into Gravity Surge. Cyno kind of sidesteps to make sure that he's still directly behind Trixtank, saves the Feather Step for a minute, and guarantees that knock him up the Moonlit Charge. That was just really well done by Cyno in particular to keep that whole fight in CC chain going to make sure that Trix never got a chance to transform. But in that situation, even if Trixtank transforms, he's dead as soon as he hits the ground. So Trix is able to at least keep his relics and ultimate up for the next potential fight.
And that was the initial like pull in, and then like you said, after the fact, Splyce just said go. There was no real, and that's what good teams do, I think, sometimes, where it's just, I don't really have a reason, we're just gonna go. Now you get the support, but I think the Dignitas had shied back a little bit. I was surprised that Splyce were able to actually catch up.
And a really good job by Hurriwind and Ataraxia on the back line of splitting up and making sure that Divios is only hitting one of them.
That's huge.
With that Pillar of Agony. That's really good spatial awareness in these team fights.
Still the fight around the Oni Fury. Trixtank carted up by the mid lane Moswal, but no pull there for Aror. I like how the teams aren't even gesturing towards the Oni anymore. It's like, no more, well, we'll see if they engage. It's straight up, fight me. We all know what's going on here. Divios and Variety trading blows on the left side instead of the right side of the map, but a return to normalcy, it seems like, as Dignitas and Splyce disperse from this area and head back to the lanes.
Dignitas should be forcing this fight, though, because look at the relics in the mid lane. No relics at all for Moswal, though he's about to get beads up in 5 seconds. No Aegis for Aror. No beads for Cyno until right now. This would have been a great fight to take, but Dignitas is a little bit too passive.
Well, Trixtank is thinking about it still. Seems silent on the player cam. I wonder what the variable is. What's the go there? Because everybody was clumped up. Aurora's in the jungle. What is Dignitas looking for to make Trixtank jump over the wall and engage?
Probably have someone go on Hurriwind from there and hope that Splyce takes the engagement. Pretty low percentage chance that you're warded all the way in that pit, so you might be able to catch them off guard. But I really like this build from Aror. He's going pure HP, basically. Got a lot of procs from the Gauntlet of Thieves still, but the Shield of Regrowth, where you just see him pop mitigate wounds and walk really fast at you. And you have to do something about it.
Well, Trixtank is going to get pulled. He's going to get pushed. He's going to get knocked up. He's going to jump away. No pull from a Wheelish. Qvofred to the backline. Cyno realizes it. The Assassins are going to fight amongst themselves. Divios provides some help. Qvo still behind enemy lines and Trixtank down to half. P.S. Splyce has yet to use an ultimate. Qvos is already on cooldown. Divios will back and heal. Meanwhile, Cyno is going to get surprised by Qvo one more time.
Blink in from Qvo nearly got the job done on the Cyno, but forcing Cyno back's a good start, but he does have that Suku to come back quickly, but Oni Fury's going to go down faster than that. That's what Merlin can do.
And Moswal providing some of the damage. All the ghosts are out, and Trixtank becomes one of them. Ataraxia picks up Moswal, a 1-for-1. Support for mid. Splyce still on the chase. Aror looking for it and has Blink. Pushes forward. This might just be it.
No way for Splyce to keep that chase going. So an Oni Fury for Dignitas. Should be a wide enough window here for Splyce to walk over and get Pyromancer, the usual sort of tit for tat that we see at the competitive level, where one team will get one objective, the other will go for the second. But Dignitas here to at least posture and make Splyce consider it.
That's why I like your word. They're going to go for it. They don't necessarily get it. Dignitas are here to annoy them. Variety can do just that. Qvo up top, Variety down the bottom. Ataraxia here as well. Pillar of Agony. Variety pulled back in, but Variety takes care of Aror. Cyno dealing with Variety himself, so it's a 2-for-1. As Qvofred zigzags Divios back home. Variety spends the ultimate and gets pulled back in, but Splyce suffered 2 deaths of their own as their front line, so they can't really contest with what Dignitas does over at the Pyro. They're going to start the fire here. I like this call.
I like it too, but Trixtank's ultimate's down for a little bit longer, and it looks like as soon as Splyce show up, Dignitas, that was the check fire, where if they show up, we're done. No reason to take all that extra damage. Not enhanced yet, so it's not too big of an issue for you. but I still think that that's a fine call. If Trix had ultimate right away, I think that Dignitas might full commit to that AoE coerce. We saw what it was able to do on the Oni Fury, where it was very easy for Hurriwind and Ataraxia between the Heavenly Banner giving the increased attack speed to Ataraxia and the coerce, and then of course Hurriwind also shredding those objectives. This Dignitas composition is much better at doing objectives than that of Splyce, who doesn't really have that much objective DPS in comparison.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
a Primal Fury buff in Dignitas' camp, and then they go for an enhanced Fire Giant. I mean, they won't have the issues that we saw them having yesterday with trying to get that objective.
No, that fire stance on Hurriwind's Merlin pick is absurd. It does so much damage. You're able to put it on top of different stances.
It's really good. Yeah, it's really, he does a lot. He does a lot of damage for sure. That being said, I don't, Gem of Isolation is very potent on Merlin, but I don't love it here.
Okay.
He's looking to use it to kite Aror. That's the big thing, is he wants it to get Aror off of him. But there's so much HP being stacked by Splyce with all the HP that Aror has built, the Warlock staff by Divios. A Soul Reaver in this slot does so much damage. I mean, Divios never gets to tank you ever again in these fights, and neither does Aurora really effectively. I would have really liked to see a Soul Reaver.
Well, it looked like a Fire Giant all in, and that's why Splyce responded kind, but everybody jumps on Aurora, and down he goes. Dignitas immediately switched to the team, and Splyce are going to do well because of it. Divios jumped out, Ataraxia falls, Ataraxia gets it, double kill for the Hunter. Cyno gets one, but I think this is all the way Dignitas. Qvofred, double kill for the Hunter, double kill for the Jungler. 4 players dead on Splyce, and Dignitas are all right. And looking at the fire.
That being said, they don't have a lot of damage without Ataraxia here. Qvo's going to keep chasing, and Trixtank is out as well. Variety is the one tanking, I believe, on this Fire Giant, so they will eventually get it. Great fight there from Ataraxia in particular. He really, I mean, he goes really deep and gets in pretty heavily right away at the beginning of that engagement, but he does it at the cost of his own life, but he baits Splyce into such a bad engagement. And Nate has always been one that really understands that living isn't always the most important thing you can do in a team fight. That is the poster child fight of how to die with effectiveness in your team fight. You get a bunch of damage off, you kill 2 people, and then you bait the rest of the team into killing you and let your team clean up. Great fight from Ataraxia, and I've been saying it since we've seen Dignitas look great at the beginning of the season. I think the linchpin in how well they've been playing has been how well Ataraxia has played on this team. He has really been shining in this role. I think he and Trix together have looked really solid. Those two have already gotten a pretty good amount of synergy. Hurriwind's been able to do a lot because of how much space Variety and Trixtank have created for him. But overall, I think Ataraxia being able to do a lot in these team fights for all of Season 6 so far has been a major factor for Dignitas.
I've definitely got to agree. And, you know, it's so interesting watching Dignitas because they use the Trixtank ultimate on the Fire Giant, but really that's for the team fight that they're predicting is going to come. They're just gambling that there will be the team fight. And as soon as Aurora shows his face, all 5 players swapped. There wasn't a second of hesitation. That was the plan from before they got to Fire Giant. And I think that's the most impressive. When I see teams just synchronized, that's one of the most impressive things. All 5 players just snapped their target and killed Aurora the moment he showed up, and that was the most impressive part of Dignitas.
Good communication, without a doubt, for Dignitas, and that's the threat of Fafnir. What makes him so potent in the meta is that I'm going to transform on Fire Giant. You have to come in and fight us, but I've already transformed, and so I'm already empowered. But if you don't come in and fight us, then we'll just take this objective very quickly without any contention. And that's what, he puts you in a bad spot no matter what you do, and good characters often do that to you.
Left side tower the focus. Of course, the 4-1 push as the assassins are dealing with each other in the mid lane. Ataraxia 4-1 and 4, providing long range shots, and Qvofred gets to tier 2 by himself. Trixtank and Ataraxia seeping in the tier 2 on the left side, likely to suffer the same fate. Splyce now backing off as Variety and Qvofred make the flank, but no commitment from Dignitas.
They don't need to commit when they just got 3,000 gold across mid and a left side tier 2. Primal Fury's up, red buff's up, purple buff's up. That's a lot of gold on the map. This is clinical and how they're going to push a lead from this position. You don't need to be going for Phoenixes right away. Get Primal Fury, get the buffs away from them. Maybe try and bait a bad engagement here on the Trixtank. You've got time in order to get this enhanced Fire Giant going in your favor.
Not taking the bait there at Splyce, but they find themselves under a 10,000 gold mountain. Dignitas looking very strong here in game number 2. Both teams made adaptations. Splyce keep the same engine of their composition, but swap out a jungle choice to add some extra tech. And Dignitas respond with extra damage from Hurriwind, Prot Shred particularly, and some protections for when things run amok out of Variety's Eagles Rally. And just the way they've been playing, I think the picks have been nice, but I think it's a very fine example of how your picks and bans and your gameplay both have to shine in order to like answer a strong team. Splyce really did it in game number 1, and Dignitas get halfway there with some smart picks and halfway there with some smart plays, and that's why they find themselves so significantly successful here in game number 2.
Variety's just had such a better game on the Bologna than the Hub one.
It was a non-pick.
Yeah, it didn't really do anything in game 1. He has really run team fights again on this pick. Variety has had a really good season 6 as well. I know I was just singing the praises of Ataraxia, but a large reason why he and Hurriwind are able to do so much is because Variety is just clearing out so much room in these fights that it makes their jobs pretty easy for them.
Variety looks like, it wasn't last year, it was season 4, I think, when he really hit his stride and people were calling him the best solo laner, or maybe even one of the better players in the league and everything. And I think season 5, we didn't see that same level. Still a very strong player in his own right, but not really at that point. This is the type of play that really made people talk about him in season 4, was this consistency and always making an impact. Always impactful, and when he's not, you really, really feel it. Hebo didn't do anything, and it felt like Dig didn't do anything.
And then they give him the Bologna, and they're up 12,000 at 29 minutes. I don't think that's too much of a coincidence. I'm sure Variety would like to be able to play the fun Hebo gods, but
I think
winning is more fun. So.
Yeah, and I think they just need to... That's a world that can exist. Dig has to balance their comp a little bit better. Fire Giant rushed down by Dignitas, down to 40%. And is the enhanced Fire Giant? Yes, it is.
Aror just got both sets of beads from Hurriwind and Ataraxia, and Divios now
huge.
Probably licking his lips about getting in there and taking this team fight.
Look at that. They have to walk away because of Auror's bead strip.
That's right. And Variety's teleport is down. This is now as good of a fight as Splyce could ever ask for to start this off.
Auror's going to blink kick and miss Hurriwind. Blink for blink. CycloneSpin is low in the back line, and that could be a problem. The blink from Qvofred is going to eliminate him, but up front, Divios catches multiple members, and nobody cares. Hurriwind and Ataraxia provide the damage. Trixtank provides the protection, and Dignitas punish Splyce for taking what could have been their best shot.
I don't know that Hurriwind has ever felt so loved in his entire life than that team fight, because he gets his beads forced, his blink forced, he's stuck in a Hades ult, and the entirety of Dignitas just comes out of the mountains. It's the scene from Mulan where they just come over the mountains and everyone's riding to his help. It's Variety's ultimate. Trixtank jumps in, shells him, transforms, and Hurriwind's like, I'm dead, I'm alive, and just starts burning Divios down. Great peel. By the way, Qvofred just finishes off CycloneSpin doing typical assassin stuff. But Dignitas, this is a team already.
Really is
that is scary to consider how good these players are individually, and to say that they already have teamwork that's this impressive. It's going to be a good year for this team if they keep this up.
Well, I think for a long time, Hurriwind has been a scapegoat on the teams that he's played on. Not in a verbal sense, but in a literal, you're going to die in the mid lane, shout out to Lobster, like that's the play style that we have. And this seems like, probably not the first time, he's got a long career, but one of the first times that somebody's like, hey, what if we save the mid lane? That's not going to happen for Moswal.
Great engagement by Cyno. Ataraxia being tossed around like a ragdoll as well. Moswal goes down, but Dignitas is soon to follow, it feels like. The Variety's locked in, that Pillar of Agony, but he's okay. Qvofred is split off, but Cyno is able to shut him down finally.
That was the Hades play. That was the Hades play. And very interesting, as 4 players are dead, Splyce are going to walk up the mid lane. They can't finish just yet. I'm with you, and I think it was an accurate statement that last team fight that we had was Splyce's best chance at a winning team fight. It really was. Everything was in their favor. Lack of relics, everything, and Dignitas punished them. And then the fight that Splyce win doesn't really look good at all.
I mean, all the relics were still down, though, from the last fight. So
I guess so,
it kind of
yeah.
carries over in that same spot. I wonder if Splyce is going to try and just risk it from this position. They are so...
Aurora has ult. Aurora has ult. He'll go for it.
They're far behind.
He'll
They're going to go for it.
Yeah, Hurriwind's going to be up in about 1 second. Trixtank jumps forward. But I think Aurora's confidence in the excavate. But as soon as Hurriwind shows up, I think that's the
Man,
end
that
of
was such a good idea, and then Cyno just doesn't ult Trixtank.
Yeah.
I think the plan there was to bait Trix to ult, make him jump to try and defend, and then just turn Gravity Surge and end up killing him. And then Gravity Surge just never came. Maybe the call was to try and end, and then Cyno was going to try and use it for that extra power and attack speed on the Titan, and then it gets called off at the same time.
I think you can do both. I think you pull him in and get 2 seconds of the ultimate on the Titan, and Aurora's got the burst.
I don't know. I don't think they can end in that position.
I think that if Splyce had made that call, win or lose, I would have been fine with it. I'm fine with them retreating. Safe than sorry is the conversation, but Splyce find themselves 1 step closer and kind of tie the game with that push, as now they're all, for the most part, 6 slotted or about to be. So that push and that control that we saw in the team fight one on the top left side of the map was very important for Splyce, although it doesn't exactly win the game. I mean, you're asking for a lot there.
But it gives you a win condition, and it really stripped away Enhanced Fire Giant from everyone but Trixtank. Now you've got Fire Minions to the right-hand side, and I like that Splyce is hanging around and forcing Dignitas into a potential engagement on the left, so that they know that their Fire Minions can keep doing work on the right. That was a great fight from Splyce, and Dignitas just kind of caught sleeping a little bit.
Yep.
After feeling pretty comfortable from getting mid Phoenix.
Divios did the Hades thing, and then, you know, it was funny. Qvofred isolated CycloneSpin last time around. Cyno does that to Qvo this time around. Jungler is doing what they're best at. Oni Fury halfway down. This is a big kill for Splyce, actually. I think Dignitas should be a little bit more involved here. Divios going to look for the fight now. Trixtank feared. Qvo's here for a flank, Ryan, but I'm not sure if he's going to jump on in.
He gets forced onto Aurora, but Hurriwind lost his purification beads after the dash in from Divios in that engagement. Those beads are upgraded, so a little bit less of a cooldown. But Dignitas seem content to let that fire wave in the right-hand side get into the Titan room to try and put pressure on this mid-Phoenix, but Splyce backs in time for a good enough defense. Now, this game is even.
And the Oni wave is a big deal right now.
Yeah, Oni wave could cause some problems, but someone's got to clear out the left Oni wave before they get to Fire Giant, I suppose. But there's a lot of time. That left wave is really shoved, and it's going to end up losing a lot of steam before it ever gets to Phoenix. You don't really care if the Oni wave takes tier 2.
It just gets pinged now as well. The red buff on the left side was pinged. I'm pretty sure that was Dig.
So no real problem. I mean, this Oni wave will take your tier 2 tower. No doubt about it. But you don't really care about that. It might lose enough steam where it won't take your Phoenix on the left-hand side, but that's something you got to worry about.
Oh, Variety gets isolated, pulled, and he's going to up down himself. But now Divios here, right in the middle of everybody, and Thornsing as well. Variety still healthy to get involved, but Cyno with the wraparound, looking for it. Blink, knock up, Hurricwind's in trouble, but the ult already used. Splyce is hurt, and Dignitas on the run.
But can they catch him? I don't think they can. I mean, Qvofred doesn't have Blink or Ultimate available. But this is where this Fafnir is so good.
Yeah.
Everyone uses ults, but Trix is still in his. He's still getting value out of this ultimate. And this will be Enhanced Fire Giant. A Primal Fury, a Coerce, 6-slotted, see ya. You don't get to stand around very long and take that kind of damage.
My mouth is agape right now. I mean, we have not seen... The Enhanced Fire Giant has been so difficult for teams to get.
Well, it's a couple things. So it's Coerce is really good. It's Merlin is really good on objectives, and Hurriwind has built to kill the objectives pretty well with the Spear of the Magus. Ataraxia is built to kill the objectives much better. That Odibo build that with pen and chin size, those don't deal damage to objectives very well. It's crit that does objectives damage very well. So you add in the Primal Fury buff to that, and Dignitas is much more focused on killing the objective. I don't think that either team yesterday did a particularly good job. If they're looking for Fire Giants, their builds didn't do very well at that. I'm talking about the Dignitas Pittsburgh Knights set, where there was a lot of trouble in getting those.
That's well said. Okay.
So it is now a a conscious decision that you have to make about how you're going to build. You have to keep the big objective in mind.
Yeah.
Now, where you really didn't have to before.
Another element of the game kind of brought into it, because also that goes back to the draft as well, right? You're looking at characters, and that feels very similar to what we saw when sieging was really changed, when some of the geometry was changed around the phoenixes and how that whole approach happened. Now we look at siege compositions and defense and offense there. I think we might have the same conversation with Enhanced Fire Giant. Now I'm not just nonsense statting this. I can say with confidence that's the fastest Enhanced Fire Giant we've seen all season.
Probably.
I can say that with confidence.
It did not last very long.
It was I think I started counting, it was a 5 or 6 second Enhanced Fire Giant.
That's pretty good.
Absurd.
I'm really surprised that Hurriwind's got 6 items and none of them are Soul Reaver. Shaman's Ring's really good. I think it's an under-purchased item, and it's just not as good as Soul Reaver would have been.
Yeah.
In this spot, there's so much HP on Aror that you do. I mean, you're doing max damage, I'm sure, with that Soul Reaver proc. You're probably doing max damage to Divios as well with how much HP he has. It's just more damage than anything else you could have gotten.
Oh my goodness. Moswal taking a bunch of damage. Ataraxia with the Eagle Eye. Cut the mid laner down a half, and the Odibo spreading the love as well. Left side Phoenix approach, and CycloneSpin gets crit a couple of times. 2 shots, and he gets pushed back. Divios uses the ultimate to keep players off of the bird, but he's going to get crit too. Finds the dash away, but a pull on the right-hand side. Variety could go down, but Qvofred takes care of Divios. Hurriwind's going to deal with Moswal as well, and Variety is still alive.
Great body blocks from Trixtank ensures that's the case, and Variety's got his teleport up. Hurriwind going very aggressively, ends up getting pushed in. Featherstep never got a chance. The peel that Hurriwind has got this game is a mid laner's dream. That is oh man, it makes me happy. I'm not even jealous. To know that there's something that pure in the world for mid laner peel makes me very happy on the inside.
Team Dignitas celebrating the win here, and as they go to take their player break, Hurriwind, the lone man in the room.
That's
left.
the only time he was alone all game.
That is the truth, actually. Always playing via the buddy system as Team Dignitas. Splyce reflecting on how that one went, as I was really confident in their composition and the adjustments that they made outside of the game in the draft. But Dignitas, I think, just played the better game.
I think Dignitas just came in and wasn't as surprised by the Hades and what it was bringing to the team compositions. I think that Dig had a much better comp to deal with the Hades this time around, and I'd like to see Splyce do a little bit better about not sticking to their gameplay. It felt like they were picking that comp almost no matter what Dignitas was going for. I'm sure that wasn't exactly the case, but I think they picked the Hades a little bit too early. They don't have that priority target that gets locked down really, really well like the Terra did in Game 1. Hades, while very good and I think definitely underpicked, still has to be in the right style of composition and against the right style of composition, and I just don't think that was the right comp for him.
I do agree with what you first said, where I think that this is just the what we were going to see out of Splyce here for Game 1 and Game 2. And what was interesting about what we saw from Dignitas, I think, you can tell somebody, okay, this is the strat that they're going to bring. And you go, okay. And then you watch it actually play out and you go, oh, I get it now.
Right.
And yeah, I'll just Bologna jump on the Hades every time. Every time.
Seems good.
Every time. 2 in the book and we're tied up. Let's break it down with John Finch.
Well, I just was saying that if there's any team that could bounce back from a tough Game 1, it would be Dignitas.
Yeah.
And then they bounced back from a tough Game 1. And it really was not as close as it ended up looking towards the end. This felt like Dignitas' game for most of it. But then they have that fight around the left side, Phoenix, where Splyce push back out, they win it, and that's to get a little bit of momentum back, but eventually Dignitas closed it out.
Definitely. And that was because Hurriwind didn't really have relics on that left side Phoenix siege once they were all retreating because of the all-in attempt that Splyce did beforehand where they lost 3 members around that tier 2 tower dive trying to kill Hurriwind. So there was some method to the madness as to why Splyce took a fight outside of their base even though Dignitas had Fire Giant. It's because Hurriwind had no relics. They found 4 easy kills, but they couldn't really go for the end. They went towards the right side. Phoenix, they got it.
They thought about it.
But then once Trixtank goes into the dragon, all the Splyce is like, That's kind of a dragon over there.
Yeah,
Like,
I
we
think
don't
that's a
really want to
dragon.
mess with that.
Yeah, maybe we should back off. And they end up having to fall back, and then they never really get another chance again. You could see the combo was there, though, right? It was Divios would ult in, and then they would all try and leave, and then Cyno would be able to hit a nice knock-up and pull him back in. But too often it felt like he ended up pulling back in Variety, and Variety just started ulting immediately. If he
Yes.
gets pulled back in, he would just go straight up, straight back down for those protections there, so he could make sure that the rest of the team wouldn't die if they're in that area. They just couldn't find a good person to pull back in.
And also the extra damage aura that you get from the Eagles rally was fruitful as well. And that's the comfort coming out of Variety to switch from Habwa to a more standard Bologna pick. And Qvofred going for this Sarkette up against Jean-Qui and Hades. It seemed really good there, doing a decent amount of killing on his side.
You talked about it during the picks and bans. Him being able to shred through this tanky team was really what turned the game around from what I was able to see. There'd be so many good initiations. Divios would go in and ult like 2 or 3 people, and he'd be so tanky. But then Qvofred could come through and clean everyone up on the back end.
Oh, and that fight there, that 3-man ult from Variety setting up Qvo for a kill in the background was so important in that last engage. And around the 21-minute mark for the Pyromancer, where Splyce forced the Pyromancer because Dignitas got the Oni Fury beforehand.
Right.
They lost 2 members there. I think it was Moswal and also Divios because Variety was doing such a good job zoning long enough for Qvofred to clean up.
And you do wonder if maybe there was a bit of, I don't know the right word, just it was a lot of confidence in this comp again from Splyce. And I don't know if it made as much just obvious sense this time as it did in game 1. It's still definitely good picks. You could see that the synergy was there, the combo was there, but it wasn't enough, especially the early game. It felt like Dignitas was kind of able to run away with it, which is so surprising with Cyno on the Awelish, but they just couldn't keep up.
And I think a lot of it came down to Aror's non-tankiness in his build
That's a great
little
point,
bit.
yeah.
He rushed the Gauntlet of Thieves, which was all nice, fine, and dandy, but then the Shield of Regrowth into the Relic Dagger. He was dying a little bit too often, so without the frontline Hercules, the backline got exposed.
And Ataraxia went crit this game, I think, right? He went Rage
Yes.
first, put the Aussie right behind it, and then he came back in towards Deathbringer at the end of the build, and that really worked for him. It was blowing up everyone on the front line, except for, obviously, Divios, who was just a monster inside the ultimate. But everyone else could not possibly stand up against those big crits coming out from Ataraxia as well. So that's a great point to talk about Aror and maybe his build path being a part of the problem here in this one, too, because they really were relying on him being that front line.
And the Coerce also coming out of Trixtank specifically enabled Ataraxia's build slightly to do those crits. The more attack speed you have, the more crit chances that you're going to be able to have, especially with that first ability extending your basic attack range. You do have opportunities as Hachiman to ignore the front line and look for the long-range shots if you are in a hectic team fight.
And we saw him coerce the whole team. They burned down the enhanced Fire Giant as well, which has been a big point, right? That's very difficult for a lot of these teams to take. It's made easier when you got a Heavenly Banner and a Coerce coming out from your Draconic Corruption Fafnir, and you can just shred right through it. And they got that objective so quickly, they're able to go push. So there's a lot that went well for Dignitas, I think, in this game, in the picks and bans, and in the way they executed it. What kind of changes do you think Splyce had to make? Is it a picks and bans? Is it playstyle, build?
I think it's a little bit of playstyle and builds, because it certainly worked picks and bans in game number 1 between the Hercules and the Hades. But then again, they were against the Habwa for Variety. I'm not sure how much they actually practice that from Dignitas' viewpoint. So it's important for Splyce to keep playing their game because it has been working for them, but make a comfort scenario for Cyno to pop off.